have so much experience in the military and also in public service um, that I wanted to speak with you again. Essentially, I'd like to really focus on veteran affairs and some peripheral stuff. But I was just uh, reading about um, homelessness, veteran homelessness. And here in San Francisco, the mayor and the city leaders just announced this new homeless initiative to end homelessness in San Francisco. I just want to read you first before I get your thoughts on this. I want to read you some statistics I just read about homeless veterans this week. Um, let's see. Veterans between the ages of 18 and 30 are twice as likely as adults in the general population to be homeless. The risk of homelessness increases significantly among young veterans who are poor. Roughly 56% of all homeless veterans are African Americans or Hispanics, despite only accounting for 12% and 15% of the U.S. population, respectively. Um, and also, the number of homeless women is on the rise. Homeless veteran women is on the rise as well. So, your thoughts on this? How does this come about with our people that give their lives, put their bodies in harm's way, and then find themselves slipping through the cracks and becoming homeless?
Well, the way I see it, and this is just me speaking, the things I've seen, we have here in Washington, D.C., there's a few veterans that are outside the gate of Washington, D.C., about within 1,000 yards of the front gate, and on the fence line, they have tents put up. And they're homeless, and they're sleeping in those tents. So, and also the way I see the homeless, it sort of directly goes back to these veterans coming back and not getting care for mental illnesses. And you take a veteran that has a mental illness, or just a vet in general, it's hard for them to find a job when they come back, whether they got a mental illness or not. Because everybody elates that every veteran that comes out of combat or, have PTSD. Not all have it, but they look at all vets. So sort of like, remember the stigma that Vietnam vets came out? All vets are crazy.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's the same stipulation they're having on the vets now because the war has been going on so long. So when you get these veterans coming back, they get out of the military, they have military skills. You got to realize most of the vets that get out, a good number or more now are getting degrees while they're in the military, but the vast majority of them are not getting degrees. The vast majority of them are being put out of the military if they are injured or hurt, missing parts of the body or whatever. The vast majority of those veterans are being put out of the military below 30%. And what I mean, 30% disability. There's the level. You get out anywhere from 10%, 20%, 30%, or higher. But if you put out of the military at 20% disability and below, which is 20% or 10%, you're not taken care of by the military anymore. You turn over to the Veterans Administration. The military, the way I see it, I don't know if this is a fact, but it seems that they purposely put veterans out of the military at 10 and 20%, knowing they were injured or have a mental problem when they get out of the military, so they don't have to take care of them. I was one of those veterans. That's why I was speaking at. I got out of the military back in 1989, and I was put out at 10%. The Veterans Administration took me over a few months later and immediately moved me to 40%. If I would have got out at 30% or higher, the military would have stayed. I still kept most of my military benefits. I would have kept all of my medical benefits. I would have had an ID card to go on the military basis. But if you get out at 10 or 20% like I did, you don't get nothing. You don't get a damn thing. You're just out of the military, you can't even go on the military bases. So now you're turned over to the Veterans Administration, which I bet you 80-90% of the veterans that get out come out that way. Now you turn over to the Veterans Administration. And it's not all blamed on the veterans. There's a lot blamed on the veterans. I'm sorry, on the Veterans Administration, but the Veterans Administration should not be blamed for everything.
Right. And so let me just to be clear, you're saying that the military itself has a disconnect with the Veterans Administration, although the Veterans Administration is tasked to support military personnel. But
let me clarify one thing right there. Well, you're right there. Good point. The Veterans Administration is separate from the military. The Veterans Administration has a budget for the Veterans Administration to assist veterans when they get out of the military. They don't have anything to do with the military care. There are two different care systems. The military, if you're in the military or if you get out at 30% above, you are still under the medical, TRICARE, whatever they have in the military, and you're taken care of that way. If you put out below that, you're turned over to the veteran system, which is a separate medical system. But the veteran system is actually overburdened. They're way overburdened, and everybody keeps cutting their budgets.
Right, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I just want to stick to this point. You're talking about this discharge percentage, these percentiles of disability. So you're saying in your case, and I would imagine you're implying that you're not the only person like this, that the military discharges individuals like yourself who are clearly disabled to a significant point, and they say you're disabled 10% or 20% or something less than 30%, and then subsequently in your case, you turn around, you're sent off to the VA, and the VA immediately says you are 40% disabled.
Well, not in all cases. That was just my case.
I'm saying in your case, right.
But I was disabled enough where the VA saw that right away, and within a year or so, I was moved to 40%. But if you take most of the veterans, the big vast number of the veterans who come out below 30%, turn into the VA, it takes them years. It takes sometimes 3 to 5 years for them to get a rating again with the VA.
Right, and this is in large part, you're saying, because the VA is overburdened, and the budget for these veterans are being cut. You're getting more veterans, but you're having less resources to support those veterans. Or even if you're having the same amount of resources, you still have more veterans, and so there's still less to go around because there's more people to share those resources.
You hit the nail on the head. Do you realize if a veteran has fought in Korean War, he fought in World War I or II, and he's still alive, he's probably under the Veterans Administration. They're caring for those vets from all wars.
Right.
So
Yeah.
You're talking about the military. If I was in the military and they put me out at 30%, guess what? The military would be taking care of me with the military medical.
Right. And so, just to be clear, I think I'm hearing that you're saying once you are put out of care from the military, there's no going back. In other words, they won't, because when the Veteran Affairs says you are 40% disabled, you can't then go back, right? That's it. It's game over once the military makes a decision. Is that correct?
When you sign those papers and say, I accept that 20 or whatever percent, when you get out, you're in the Veterans Act. No going back. No going back. And the other thing, it's an incentive to the military to give these guys over to the Veterans Administration because it doesn't come out of their budget anymore. They don't have to pay you till you retire, till you die. They don't have to take care of you. The Veterans Administration has to take care of you till you die.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the military does not make that clear to the military personnel that's injured or sick that they've got to hit that magic number 30 because a lot of them don't know and they just accept what they give them. I fought it 3 times and finally they kicked me out still at 10%. But guess what? I still didn't know about the 30% magic number until later after I got out, long after I got out.
Yeah. So this brings, I want to loop back around to this homeless, but I want to add another element, which is the stress and the, you're dealing with injuries, right? And some of them could be psychological, obviously physical injuries, and perhaps even brain traumas. And on top of that, the very organization which you served under is essentially disowning you, I guess, to you know, more or less. And you're then trying to navigate in a civilian world where there is a stigma towards veterans in some cases. So I want to read you a little bit more statistics about this on this homeless thing, and just get more insight on what you think about that and the suffering that veterans go through. So let's see. Here's a thing. About 53% of individual homeless veterans have disabilities, compared with 41% of homeless non-veterans. So, I mean, clearly the homeless are people with disabilities, but it's even higher, over 50% for veterans. Half suffer from mental illness, 2/3 suffer from substance abuse, and many from dual diagnosis. Homeless veterans also tend to experience homelessness longer than non-veteran peers, on average spending nearly 6 years homeless compared to 4 years reported by non-veterans. And this information is coming from Green Doors, which is a national nonprofit that tracks data on homeless and assists homeless veterans.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm a veteran with I have PTSD, and I've been through PTSD classes with the Veterans Administration. I'll tell you that right now. But some of the veterans that I talk to, and I'm not talking about in my class anyway, just the veterans I see on the street, we'll put it that way, that those veterans just went through the process, just what we spoke about getting out, coming through the veteran system, and you go in and you get a physical, and they check you over, and then you come back and you see something wrote later. They deny you for your benefits, and when you look at why they denied you, it's something they didn't even check or fully check, or they wrote it differently. And then, so those veterans keep going over and over through the system. Now, the military got rid of them and didn't do anything for them. They away from the military. They can't come on the bases. So the veterans get to the point where they don't trust anyone. They don't trust the military. They don't trust the people around them. They don't trust the VA. So a lot of these, when these veterans got these brain injuries, they get to the point where they trust no one. That's why a lot of the homeless problem that the veterans are having, that they don't trust anyone. Even if the Veterans Administration want to take some of these guys off the street, they do not want to go to a shelter. They don't want to go into these programs because they don't trust anybody.
Because they've experienced this being shunned and sort of cast aside, and I guess you could even say given a bunch of double talk or fast talk by the very institutions that were supposed to be there for them.
Right, and they're not getting even though the administration offers, these veterans are not getting the actual mental care that they need. They're not getting treated because, like I say, the system is so overburdened and taxed, and such a large number of people coming back with these injuries and these mental problems from the military, they're not getting treatment. Two, like I say, it takes so long to get a VA rating once you get out and into the veteran system to get rated for your injuries. I mean, they might tell you, okay, this time you put in 5 ratings, you might get 1 because you got something on your leg or something wrong with some skin rash or something. But before you get treated for mental, the hoops they make you jump through to get rated for PTSD or for mental rated is astronomical. And like I say, these veterans don't like going in there, and they don't trust anybody. And then they have to go in and relive the combat stuff that they're running away from. The same thing that you are trying to run away from your combat history and get rid of all this stuff and bad things you saw, you got to bring this back